Now, my memory isn't what it once was. We all have to go through that. It's sad. When I was young, I could remember everything that happened. Now, I can remember everything, whether it happened or not. I can still very well remember the Hannibal of my youth, the White Town drowsing. In the little log cabin lived a bedridden, white-headed slave woman whom we visited daily and looked upon with awe, for we believed she was upward of 1,000 years old and had talked with Moses. The younger Negroes credited these statistics and had furnished them to us in good faith. We accommodated all the details which came to us about her, and so we believed that she had lost her health in the long desert trip coming out of Egypt and had never been able to get it back again. She had a round, bald place on the crown of her head, and we used to creep around and gaze at it in reverent silence and reflect that it was caused by fright through seeing Pharaoh drowned. We called her Aunt Hannah, Southern fashion. She was superstitious like the other Negroes. Also like them, she was deeply religious. Like them, she had great faith in prayer and employed it in all exigencies, but not in cases where a dead certainty of result was urgent. Whenever witches were around, she tied up the remnant of her wool in little tufts with white thread, and this promptly made the witches impotent. All the Negroes were friends of ours, and with those of our own age, we were in effect comrades. I say in effect using the phrase as a modification. We were comrades, and yet not comrades. Color and condition interposed a subtle line which both parties were conscious of and which rendered complete fusion impossible. We had a faithful and affectionate good friend, ally, and advisor in Uncle Daniel, a middle-aged slave whose head was the best one in the Negro quarter, whose sympathies were wide and warm, and whose heart was modest and simple and knew no guile. He has served me well these many years. I have not seen him for more than half a century, and yet spiritually I have had his welcome company a good part of that time, and have staged him in books under his own name and as Jim. This feeling and this estimate have stood the test of 60 years and more, and have suffered no impairment. The black face is as welcome to me now as it was then. In my schoolboy days, I had no aversion to slavery. I was not aware that there was anything wrong about it. No one arraigned it in my hearing. The local papers said nothing against it. The local pulpit taught us that God approved it, that it was a holy thing, and the doubter need only look in the Bible if he wished to settle his mind. And then the texts were read aloud to us to make the matter sure. If the slaves themselves had an aversion to slavery, they were wise and said nothing. In Hannibal, we seldom saw a slave misused. On the farm, never. There was, however, one small incident of my boyhood days which touched this matter, and it must have meant a good deal to me or it would not have stayed in my memory, clear and sharp, vivid and shadowless, all these slow drifting years. We had a little slave boy whom we had hired from someone there in Hannibal. He was from the eastern shore of Maryland and had been brought away from his family and friends halfway across the American continent and sold. He was a cheery spirit, innocent and gentle, and the noisiest creature that ever was, perhaps. All day long he was singing, whistling, yelling, whooping, laughing. It was maddening, devastating, unendurable. At last, one day, I lost all my temper and went raging to my mother and said Sandy had been singing for an hour without a break, and I couldn't stand it, and wouldn't she please shut him up? The tears came into her eyes, and her lips trembled, and she said something like this. Poor thing. When he sings, it shows he is not remembering, and that comforts me. But when he is still, I am afraid he is thinking, and I cannot bear it. He will never see his mother again, and if he can sing, we must not hinder it, but be thankful for it. If you were older, you would understand me. Then that friendless child's noise would make you glad. It was a simple speech and made up of small words, but it went home, and Sandy's noise was not a trouble to me anymore. My mom never used large words, but she had a natural gift for making small ones do effective work. She lived to reach the neighborhood of 90 years and was capable with her tongue to the last, especially when a meanness or an injustice roused her spirit. She has come handy to me several times in my books, where she figures as Tom Sawyer's Aunt Polly. I fitted her out with a dialect and tried to think up other improvements for her, but did not find any. I used Sandy once, also in Tom Sawyer. I tried to get him to whitewash the fence, but it did not work. I do not remember what name I called him by in the book. I believe that my story about Sandy had value for me, and it has value for anyone today who wants to change how they feel about race. I ask the listeners to consider it in that respect. Thank you.